A lot of people think anxiety is kind of about the trigger, right? So I have anxiety of, let's say public speaking. Well, lots of people have anxiety of public speaking, but lots of people don't. If it was about
Hmm.
public speaking, then everyone would have anxiety of public speaking.
Oh, good
Anxiety,
point.
yeah, anxiety is my belief in my ability to handle it. If I don't believe I can handle it, I'm going to have more anxiety. If I
Wow.
believe I can handle it, I'm going to have less anxiety. So often, if my core belief is not good enough, I'm not going to believe in myself. I'm going to have more anxiety because I'm not going to believe in myself as much that I can handle something. So, what we have to do is start becoming aware of that. What's that voice that I keep telling to myself over and over again? And then really look at it. Anxiety isn't about my actual skill and ability, it's about my belief in myself. So, for example, as a salesperson, if I think, oh, I got this big sale coming up, I'm feeling anxious, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle it, I'm going to have higher anxiety. But often
100%.
after the event happens, we go, oh, that wasn't so bad. Why was I stressed out and worried about it? It's not about your ability. It's about your belief in yourself. So often, whenever there's something new that we haven't done before, we're going to have more anxiety because we're not going to feel as confident in handling it. So that's why people often need to see things 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Then they start to become more comfortable with it. They start understanding it more. They're going to be more open to it. Whereas originally, they're going to be a bit more defensive because it's new. They're not going to feel as confident in it.
Yeah. No, that makes 100%. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir, or vice versa here. That's an obvious thing, and I thought about part of a way when you were talking that last point. I thought came on about the just lost my thought. I had it halfway through the conversation, and now the uh, you know what? I'll come back to it. I'm going to save myself from too much embarrassment here, and I'm going to say, what's the first step someone can take to challenge their belief of not being enough? And that's obviously recognition. What I was going to say is, I have started to believe and understand as I become more experienced on the other side of this, that
Mhm.
journey, experiencing the journey. Especially, and this may sound, I hope it doesn't sound sexist, but especially men, that's a sign of weakness. We can't, I can't show that. I can't show that stuff, and don't want to go out and ask for help. But what I'm starting, there are people that could probably help themselves, but a professional that you don't go learn baseball from somebody who's never played before. You go learn from, the best, so you can really understand it and help them and be there. I've even had people that couple sessions in, I'm like, I'm counseling her or him, and that, so it's not the profession, it's the knowledge, and it's the ability to pass it on. And that is why I become a wholehearted supporter as a man, as an old man, in professional health. And that's why I was so excited. Another reason, you're there and you're spreading that out, and you've spent your whole life mastering your message, let's say.
Right. And I think that's a really important part. We can only learn within our knowledge base. So if I'm trying to figure it out on my own, that's great, but I
Ooh,
can
yeah,
only do
yeah.
that within what my knowledge is. My
Oh,
job
yeah.
as a counselor is to challenge that, make that knowledge base wider. So now I can pick from a whole bunch of other information that before I
Yeah.
didn't even know existed. Right. So it is important, if you're not comfortable going to a counselor or whatever it might be, that's okay, but you still need to figure out, how do I broaden my knowledge and learn more? And so it's really important to do that, to make sure we're doing that. And just your point about men, I would agree significantly. When I first started my practice,
I was a little nervous. Today's world, you never know. I didn't want to make this thing dive off the deep end there.
no,
And to add what you're saying, go on, but if you don't have the counselor, at least have a friend who knows and understands. My start on that journey of recovery, I refer to producer Barbie a lot, right? In this show, she became the tool, and sometimes it pissed me off because she knew more about me than I did. And but anytime she'd see me, you know, she knew what I was going through. I didn't know I was exuding it, but that was where I started. And it's so critical to have that support, good support, not somebody who's gonna okay, well, yeah, oh man, poor, I'm
Right.
sorry. You know, that's not support. I mean, it's kind, but it's not support, right?
Right, for sure. Like I was saying, when I first started in my practice in 2010, I was lucky if I was 20 to 30% men. And the men who would come into counseling, they would not sit in
Yeah.
my waiting room. They wouldn't even park
Yeah.
out front of my building. They needed to park out, a block and a half away, throw their hoodies on. I'd text them, okay, you could come in. They'd run in through the back door, zip into my office. But usually within about 3 sessions, they were like, give me your card. I got to tell all my buddies about this. So once they
Yeah.
were able to kind of shake that social pressure that's there on, men are supposed to be tough and suck it up, and someone actually validated and said, yeah, you're, you know what, you're human, you have emotion like everyone else, you've had to deal with these outside pressures that are ridiculous, then they were much
Mhm.
more open to it. Now in 2025, my client list, I'm almost 50-50 men and women. And so
Yeah.
I see men calling regularly, I want to get on your waiting list or whatever it may be. Whereas before, it was often men coming begrudgingly because their wife was forcing them. So there
Yeah.
has been a real shift with men where men are saying, no, I want to figure this out. I have a right to have a happy, healthy life and not just be in survival mode all the time. I want to figure it out. And I think part of that whole idea of feeling emotions with weakness is an excuse, because if we think of it as weak, then we don't have to do it. Right. But the
Yeah.
truth of the matter is
Oh,
feeling your
ooh,
emotions, sorting through your emotions.
you got us figured out here.
Right. You bet. Right.
Ah,
Society says,
yeah.
oh, it's weak. Everybody goes, okay, well, we don't have to do that. But why are we
Yeah.
doing that? Just because it's scary to do it. It
Yeah.
actually takes way more confidence to sort through and figure out your mental health and your anxiety, your depression, your core belief, and figure out how you want to live your best life. That takes a lot of courage to do that. It's not an easy thing to do.
It's not, but it's the best thing in the world that you could ever do. Exploratory, being honest with yourself. And I alluded to a early on when we were chatting there. I alluded to my own story, and producer Barbie. We've been together like 20 years. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, hey, can I help you? She knew me, and that core belief is guided by what like what you said. You have to recognize it, and then from there, it the more you do it, right? And I'm sure you're going to back me up on, more you do it, the better person you become. It's exponential. Like you start getting comfortable with yourself. The story is abbreviated. I've lived my whole life until recently, and a lot of things are the reason why I changed. But I used to, I've been a salesperson, so I was always behind a mask using the name JR, which Barbie finally got me to admit that to myself. And all of a sudden that came on, that mask came off, and I became authentic. Big word, right?
Right.
So one thing before you go here, go into that. How can we differentiate between a healthy